Let me ask you something. When was the last time you really looked at your dog's poop? I know. It's not exactly dinner table conversation. Most of us grab the bag, scoop, tie it up, and move on with our day. You've probably done it 1,000 times without a second thought. But here's the truth. That little thing you're throwing away every single day might be the most honest health report your dog can give you. Your dog can't tell you their stomach hurts. They can't say they've been feeling off all week. But their body leaves you a message every day, right there in the yard, and most people never read it. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Evan Park. I've been a veterinarian for more than 20 years, and in all that time, I can't tell you how many serious problems we caught early, all because an owner noticed something looked a little off in the backyard and picked up the phone. Today I'm going to teach you how to read that daily message. What the colors mean, what the shape and the texture are telling you, and what's actually going on inside your dog when things change. There's one color in particular I need every single one of you to remember, because at a quick glance it can look almost normal, but it's one of the most urgent warning signs there is. I'll tell you which one before we're done. So stay with me all the way through. Let's start with what normal actually looks like, because you can't spot trouble if you don't know what healthy looks like in the first place. What does health actually look like? Here's your baseline. Healthy dog poop should be a nice chocolate brown, firm, but not hard as a rock. It should hold its shape like a log, and it should be easy to pick up without leaving a smeared mess behind. That brown color isn't random. It comes from something called bile. Bile is a fluid your dog's liver makes to help break down fats during digestion. When the whole system is running the way it should, that bile gives the stool a consistent brown color day after day. So that steady chocolate brown is actually a quiet sign that the liver, the gut, and everything in between is doing its job. Now here's the single most valuable thing I can teach you today, and it doesn't cost you a penny. Learn your dog's normal. Every dog is a little different. One dog's healthy might be slightly darker than another's. What matters is that you know what your dog looks like when they're feeling good. The color, the firmness, how often they go each day. Take a mental picture of it, because once you know they're normal, you'll notice the very moment something changes. And catching that change early, before your dog even seems sick, is one of the most powerful things you can do as an owner. You become your dog's first line of defense. Your vet can do a lot, but they only see your dog once in a while. You see the backyard every single day. So now that you know what good looks like, let's talk about what happens when the color starts to shift, because your dog's body uses color a lot, like the warning lights on your car's dashboard. Some are a gentle, keep an eye on this. Others mean pull over right now. Let's start with green. Don't panic the second you see a little green. The most common reason is the simplest one. Your dog ate grass. A whole lot of dogs do it. Nobody fully knows why, but it's common, and a good mouthful of grass can tint things green on the way out. If your dog was grazing on the lawn like a little cow yesterday, a green tinge today is usually nothing to worry about. But here's where you lean in and pay attention. If the green sticks around and your dog hasn't been eating grass, that deserves a closer look. Persistent green can point to a few different things going on inside. Sometimes it means food is rushing through the gut too fast to be digested properly, so the bile doesn't have time to do its usual work on the color. Sometimes it points to a gallbladder issue, and in some cases, it can be a sign of a parasite or an infection stirring up trouble in the intestines. So here's your simple rule. A little green once, right after they've been in the grass, almost always fine. Green that keeps showing up for a day or two with no grass to explain it. Especially if your dog also seems a little off, that's your cue to call your vet. Hold on to that watch it for a day or two idea, because it's going to matter again in a few minutes. Now let's move to a couple of colors where I don't want you to wait and watch at all. These are the ones where you act. Now let's talk about the colors that mean call right now. I'm going to put these next two together because they share one important thing. When you see them, you don't sit around wondering. You call your vet. Same day. First, black. And I really need you to hear me on this one because it's easy to brush off. I'm not talking about dark brown. I'm talking about a deep terry black, almost like tar or like coffee grounds. This can be one of the most serious signals your dog's body can send because it often means there's bleeding high up in the digestive tract, up in the stomach or the small intestine. Here's why it turns black. When blood comes from that high up, it travels all the way down through the gut and gets digested along the way, just like food does. That digestion is what turns the blood dark, and it comes out as that black tarry stool. One honest note so I don't scare you unnecessarily. If poop sits out in the yard for a day, normal brown can darken as it dries out in the air. That's harmless. But fresh poop that comes out black right there and then, that's a reason to get to the vet quickly. And usually, dogs passing true black stool aren't quite themselves in other ways either. Maybe they're a little tired off their food, not their usual selves. Trust that combination. Next, red. This one is often easier to spot because it usually shows up as bright red streaks in the stool or smeared around it. That bright red typically means the bleeding is coming from lower down, near the end of the digestive tract, or the rectum itself. It can come from inflammation in the lower gut, an infection, or sometimes just a little irritation or a small tear back there. Sometimes it's minor and clears up. But here's my honest advice. When you see red, you don't try to figure it out on your own at home. You let your vet take a look. Even a small streak of blood is worth a phone call because you can't tell from the outside whether it's something small or the first sign of something bigger. And here's a twist that catches people off guard. Certain foods can fool you. Beets can turn stool a reddish color. A big serving of carrots can give it an orange tint. So if your dog got into something colorful in the kitchen, that might be your explanation. But when there's no food to explain it, treat any red or any true black as a reason to reach out to your vet. When it comes to blood, better safe than sorry every single time. I have never once been annoyed by an owner who called about blood in the stool. Not once. Now, before I get to that sneaky color I promised you, let's cover a couple more you might come across in the yard. Let's talk about white and gray, because these tell their own stories. Chalky, white, crumbly poop shows up most often in dogs who eat a lot of bone, especially dogs on a raw diet. Too much calcium from all that bone can make the stool turn pale, hard, and crumbly, and it often comes hand in hand with constipation. So if that describes your dog's diet, that's usually your answer right there. You might just need to adjust how much bone they're getting, and your vet can help you dial that in. But pale, gray, greasy-looking stool is a different message altogether. I'm talking about stool that looks slick, oily, almost shiny. That greasy appearance often means your dog isn't absorbing fat the way they should. And that can point to a problem with the pancreas or the gallbladder, the organs that help digest fat in the first place. So if your dog's poop looks pale and greasy, especially if it's happening more than once, that's one to bring to your vet's attention. It's the kind of thing that's much easier to manage when you catch it early. Now here's one I really want you to watch closely for. Get a good look at the poop before you scoop. Do you ever notice little white specks in there? Something that looks almost like grains of rice or little seeds or tiny bits of pasta? And here's the part that makes most people's skin crawl a little. Sometimes those specks actually move. If you see that, your dog very likely has tapeworms. Those little rice-like pieces are actually segments of the worm itself passing through. Now, I know that sounds alarming and it's certainly unpleasant to think about. But here's the good news. Tapeworms are common and they're very treatable. It needs the proper dewormer. Just don't ignore the specks and don't assume they'll go away on their own because they won't. All right, you've been patient with me, and now it's time. Let me tell you about that one color I promised you at the very beginning. So, now is the time to reveal the sneaky one I warned you about. Here it is. The color I most want you to remember, because it's the one people are most likely to glance at and think, that's probably fine. It's a poop that looks fairly normal in shape and color, but it's coated in a slick, jelly-like slime, a layer of mucus, sometimes clear, sometimes a little cloudy, sometimes streaked with a touch of that red blood we just talked about. Here's why this one is so easy to miss. The poop itself can look almost okay. So you glance down, see a mostly normal-looking stool, and move right along. But that slimy mucus coating is your dog's gut waving a little flag at you. It often points to irritation or inflammation in the large intestine, something called colitis. It can be kicked off by a lot of things: stress, a sudden change in food, an infection, something they ate that didn't agree with them. An occasional light mucus coating, here and there, can be normal. The gut makes a little mucus to keep things moving smoothly. But when you start seeing that slimy coating regularly, or it shows up alongside blood, or your dog is also losing weight or throwing up, that's your signal to call the vet and get things checked out. This is exactly the kind of quiet clue that's so easy to overlook, and it's exactly why I wanted to make sure you knew to look for it. So now you've got the colors down. But color is only half the story, because the shape and the texture, that's a whole second conversation your dog is having with you. Let's read that part too. Now let's talk about the shape and texture of each type of their poop. Vets actually use a scale for this, a little like a ruler that runs from one end to the other. On one end, you've got hard, dry little pellets. On the other end, you've got watery liquid. And right in the sweet spot in the middle is what we're aiming for, that firm, smooth, sausage-shaped log that holds together but still has a little give when you pick it up. That's the goal. So let's talk about the two ends of that scale because both are trying to tell you something. First, the hard, dry pellets. When poop comes out as hard little nuggets, like small rocks, that usually means constipation. And the most common reason behind it is simple: not enough water. Your dog may be a little dehydrated or not drinking enough, so the body pulls extra moisture out of the stool and leaves it dry and hard. Now and then it can also mean too much bone in the diet, like we talked about with the white stool. If your dog is straining to go or hasn't gone at all in a couple of days, that's worth a call. Constipation isn't just uncomfortable. Left too long, it can turn into a real problem. Now the other end, diarrhea, loose, watery stool. This one's incredibly common and it has 100 causes. Maybe your dog got into the trash. Maybe you switched their food too fast. Maybe a little bug is passing through. A single loose stool that clears up quickly usually isn't cause for alarm. It happens. But here's the line I want you to draw. If the diarrhea keeps going for more than a day or two, or if it comes along with vomiting, low energy, or any of those warning colors we talked about, that's when it stops being a passing thing and becomes a reason to call. And there's a bigger reason to watch it closely, especially with our older dogs and the little ones. Ongoing diarrhea drains fluid fast, and that dehydration can become dangerous quicker than people realize, so don't let it run for days while you wait and hope. A day or two, then you check in. And one more thing on texture that people forget: straining. If your dog is squatting over and over, clearly trying, and either nothing's coming or just a little liquid is, don't assume it's constipation and leave it. Sometimes that straining is actually a sign of something stuck or a blockage or irritation that needs a look.